Also knows it's never too late to live again or reclaim your life. But not everyone feels the same. Cops show up telling Ronnie that he needs to register as a sex offender. Nope. No way. Governor Roy Cooper needs to do his damn job and make it official that Ronnie is, and has always been, innocent. He also needs this so he can claim his wrongful conviction compensation of $750,000 from the state of North Carolina, although no amount can compensate for all the years lost and all the hurt gained. In the meantime, Ronnie has a GoFundMe page. Ronnie made the kind of history that no one hopes for, as number 3 on the National Registry of Exonerations. Who topped the list? At number 2 is Wilbert Jones. He served 44 years, 9 months, and 9 days. Wilbert's life changed in the parking lot of Baton Rouge General Hospital in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, on the night of October 2nd, 1971, when a 26-year-old nurse identified by the initials A.H. was confronted by an armed man. The man forced her back into her car, then got in the back seat. All of a sudden, the gun discharged, shattering the windshield and took the side. The sound briefly leaves a ringing in her ears. She is forced to drive to a secluded area and then forced to walk away from the car. A.H. was then sexually assaulted. He then ran away. Shaken, but not deterred, she went to the cops and described her attacker as 5 feet 8 or 9 inches, or maybe it was 6 feet 3 inches. She said he had a single gap between his front teeth and a smooth, soft voice. In January 1972, Baton Rouge police arrest the guy on suspicion of rape. The guy says at the time of the rape, he was with his 19-year-old Wilbert Jones. So, on January 13, 1972, the cops pick up Jones at his home and bring him to the police station. The next day, A.H. went to a police lineup where the suspects were told to repeat certain phrases the rapist said to A.H. So, Jones did as he was told, and A.H. identified Wilbert Jones as her attacker. Although she did express concern that Jones's voice sounded rougher than her attacker, and she noticed Jones is only 5 foot 3 inches, 2 full inches shorter than her. The cops don't let any of that nonsense discourage them. Jones is charged with rape and went to trial in February of 1973. At the trial, A.H. told the jury that she was not 100% sure. Once again, she brought up her concern about his height and the sound of his voice. She also made it clear that she called police the day after her initial pick and told them, "That man that assaulted me appeared to be taller, and I am worried about the voice. It wasn't quite the same." Her testimony was the only thing linking Jones to the crime. Good enough for them. He was convicted by a jury on February 6, 1973, and was sentenced to life in prison. In September of 1973, the Louisiana Supreme Court reversed the decision and ordered a new trial. The prosecutor had injected racism into the trial by claiming the rapist made disparaging comments about whites. But A.H. was actually black and never testified that her rapist said this. Not that it mattered because he got convicted again and got another life sentence. Finally, in 2001, the Innocence Project New Orleans began to look into the case. They discovered another man named Arnold Ray O'Connor had been implicated in 2 rapes that were similar to the attack on A.H. A few days after the attack on A.H., a 24-year-old woman was raped in the exact same way as A.H. That woman described him as about 6 feet 2 inches and having a space between his teeth. He also had a soft voice. Police recovered fingerprints from the woman's car, and they matched O'Connor. Turns out O'Connor had several rapes, yet the police nor prosecution disclosed this to Jones's defense attorney. In March 2015, The Innocence Project filed a petition for a new trial. On October 31st, 2017, Judge Richard Anderson vacated Jones's conviction and ordered a new trial. Jones was released on bond November 15, 2017. On October 11, 2018, the prosecution dismissed all charges. And the poor soul at number one is Richard Phillips, a 45-year, 2-month, and 9 days. In Detroit, Michigan, on June 26, 1971, Gregory Harris left his home to grab some cigarettes. His wife never saw him again. Fred Mitchell, who was the brother-in-law of Harris, had already done time for manslaughter and was seen as a suspect. Police stopped Mitchell the following month, on July 1st of 1971, and confiscated a .22 caliber pistol from Mitchell at a traffic stop. He should have been arrested for parole violation, but was not. Cops took the gun and just put it in a property room and did nothing with it. The cops were all known to be pretty racist and really didn't care much about missing black men. Then on March 3rd, 1972, a highway maintenance worker found a body hidden in the woods. After it was identified to be 21-year-old Gregory Harris. An autopsy will reveal he had been shot in the head twice with a .22. Cops put two and two together and now want to question Fred Mitchell about the .22 caliber pistol that was taken from him last year. Mitchell was already in prison on an armed robbery charge. Mitchell claimed to know who killed his brother-in-law and why. He fingered two old friends of his, 25-year-old Richard Phillips and 23-year-old Richard Palumbo. The cops go to find both men. Phillips and Palumbo were both in prison for an armed robbery they committed together. Why did they want to kill Harris? Mitchell says Gregory Harris robbed Palumbo's cousin, and the family wanted revenge. They approached Mitchell because they believed him being Harris's brother-in-law would make it easier to lure him to his death. Palumbo also tells Mitchell, if this goes well, he can get in with his family who runs the Italian mob. So, Mitchell agrees to portray his own brother-in-law. On June 26, Gregory Harris is lured to a drugstore. Harris picks up Mitchell, Palumbo, and Phillips. Mitchell says he was dropped off beforehand. Later, the guys return without Harris, saying the check has been cashed, code for the murder being done. And Mitchell says the .22 caliber gun he was caught with at the traffic stop was given to him by Palumbo after the murder. Now, let's figure out how Richard Phillips ended up in a prison for armed robbery. Phillips says he was innocent, but he was chosen out of a lineup. In reality, it was likely Fred Mitchell, who he resembled, who committed the armed robbery with Palumbo. But Phillips was too loyal to correct the mistake, so he took the charge. This made it easier to convict the guys together for the murder because they were already linked to an armed robbery. Both guys are charged for Gregory Harris's death. Phillips decides to spend his time wisely. He becomes an artist while he fights the case. Not just an artist, but a gifted painter. The Michigan Innocent Clinic picks up his case and discovers in 2010 that in a parole hearing, Palumbo had confessed that he did murder Harris, but he did it with Fred Mitchell, not Richard Phillips. The real reason for the murder was that Gregory and his brother, Alex, had stolen $500 from Fred Mitchell's mom, and he wanted revenge. That's all. Phillips was never involved. Palumbo told the truth because he wanted clemency. But now Palumbo has to tell the truth in court. He refuses. But his sworn testimony from before was accepted. Later it is revealed Palumbo did not even know Phillips before this, and the dates Mitchell told the cops did not even match up. On March 28, 2018, Richard Phillips is freed. Mitchell was never charged for the crime, and he died of an overdose in August of 1997. Richard Palumbo died of complications from coronavirus. Bottom line, if it wasn't for Palumbo, Phillips would still be in prison. For his troubles, Richard Phillips was awarded $1.5 million. Now, what exactly is the National Registry of Exonerations? Ken Otterberg is going to break it down for us.
My name is Ken Otterberg. I'm one of two researchers at the National Registry of Exonerations, and we are a university-based research project. We're located based at the University of California at Irvine, and also we are affiliated with the law schools at University of Michigan and Michigan State University. We started officially in 2012, and we now have approximately 2,700 exonerations in our main database, which starts in 1989 with the use of DNA in courtrooms. And then we also have another 400 plus in our pre-1989 database. And we're about to start a new registry of what we call group exonerations, where systemic misconduct has led to large-scale vacations of convictions. So what we do is we sort of like to say that we do two things. We count things and we tell stories. And so each of our cases, our exonerations, starts with the dismissal or vacation of a wrongful conviction. And we have some pretty strict criteria about what's an exoneration for our purposes. So we often say that all exonerations are wrongful convictions, but not all wrongful convictions are exonerations for our purposes. So we need new evidence of innocence post-conviction. We need no Alford pleas or released on parole. We do not like unexplained physical evidence of guilt. And the reason for your a conviction vacated based on jury misconduct or insufficient evidence often doesn't suffice for our purposes. But what we'll do after a case is dismissed, a conviction is dismissed, is we gather all the records from that case. This could be the dockets, the arrest reports, the court rulings, transcripts if available, everything we can get our hands on. And we take the case apart and we put it back together in two ways. One as data and one as story. And they serve separate but related purposes. So the summary might tell how a person became a suspect, how they were prosecuted, how they were convicted, their appeals process, and then ultimately how their conviction was vacated, whether through the courts or through a conviction integrity unit or through a pardon or some other process. And what you often find in these cases, particularly those that have gone on for years and years, is a series of actions and inactions and mistakes, some malicious, some perhaps innocuous at the time, that funnel a defendant down a pathway toward conviction. And you also end up finding quite often that there's a criminal justice system that has a hard time acknowledging its mistakes. So we'll write those up into a summary, we call it, that usually is anywhere from 500 words for a fairly simple case involving a case where, let's say, a defendant was convicted and then a drug lab test comes back and shows that what they arrested on was not a drug, to a pretty complicated case such as Ronnie Long's case, which went on for 44 years, which has tons of rulings and tons of court decisions and lots of back and forth. And then what we also do is we break the case apart into data points, which fill the database that we maintain and we're always adding to. And so we have, I think I counted up one time, we have more than 100 variables that we're coding for. And some of them are quite simple and demographic, such as a person's age at the time of the crime, their race, their sex, Did they have previous criminal record? What state they were in? The jurisdictions, things of those basis. And then we also have things that are much more important to the particulars of that case.